an Excelsior Studios original production. Throughout this podcast, sensitive subjects such as sexual assault, eating disorders, and suicidal thoughts will be mentioned. Listener discretion is advised. And throughout this podcast, every voice you hear that is not mine is generated by AI. While the voices you're hearing are fake, the words they are reading are 100% real. And I won't warn you throughout this episode because, like I said, this can act as one big legal disclaimer. If you are hearing a voice other than mine, it is generated via AI, and it is reading a real message that was sent last September.
Hey Megan, this is Xavier from True Renewal. I'm getting organized for the coming work week. I hope your spirit is feeling revived and rested after the holiday weekend. When do you have space to reconnect this week over the phone? I'm still getting used to this medium of communication, so please be patient with me. But Elf had space to play around with it this weekend, and I think I've got the hang of it. I hope that me meeting this communication need that you have will demonstrate a desire to build a relationship upon mutual respect going forward.
Hey there. I might have some space tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm recovering from a nasty stomach bug, so my replies may be slower than usual, but I really appreciate you meeting me here.
All right, this is where it all culminates. This is when you get to learn how we caught Megan Stoner. I'm so sorry for the hiatus. Feels like everything that can go wrong with recording this episode has gone wrong with recording this episode, so I'm so sorry for the delay, and I'm very excited to tell you the real story. And I've decided to tell you the real story in a unique way. I've never heard another true crime podcast do this, but I've also never heard of a true crime podcast where the host was the reason that the subject was caught. So let me explain. As you can recall in the last episode, we created a fake sexual healing yoni provider character. I made an Instagram account and Justin kind of spoke as this character. And Megan was so eager to meet this character. So eager, in fact, that we enlisted the help of Alex Brewster, who you've heard throughout this podcast, because we were worried that she would want to meet within the next day or so. We didn't know how all of this would go down. We thought that we might end up going to a Starbucks or something. And I live in Minneapolis, hours away from Indy, and Justin was going to be out of town that weekend. So we thought we might need to have Alex help us enlist some trustworthy person in Indianapolis to, wait for Megan and call the police. Obviously, that didn't happen because, again, if you remember in the last episode, Megan got really testy with us. She became kind of rude, actually, and was very adamant that this character switched to the app Telegram to communicate. And Justin and I ended up just kind of backing off from that. The reason is because Telegram, if you've never used it before, when you download Telegram, all of the people who also have Telegram, who have your contacts saved, will get a notification that you downloaded Telegram. We were worried that Megan had Justin's number saved from when they communicated in the past, and that she would find out that the character was really Justin. So we tested it out for the weekend, kind of made Megan sit on it, and every text you hear in this episode will be every single text between Justin playing this fake Yoni character and Megan over Telegram up until she got caught. And from time to time, I'll offer our own little backstory and kind of tell you what was going on behind the scenes. I hope this helps you feel like you're involved in the chase with us. Again, I've never heard a true crime podcast do something like this, so I really, really hope you like this. But one more thing, if you appreciate this podcast and all the blood, sweat, and tears I've put into it, it's completely independent, so please like and subscribe, rate me 5 stars. If you want to support this podcast, it would mean the world to me. I've linked a Buy Me a Coffee in the description. Anything you give is more than appreciated. And if you want to learn how to make your own podcast like this, I've linked a course that teaches you how to do that I made in the description as well. But without further ado, I've kept you waiting long enough. Let's just get into it. I'm Amanda, and this is Don't Waste This Effing Podcast, the story of Megan Stoner.
It's so great to reconnect. I am so sorry to hear that you are dealing with a stomach bug. How is your spirit? I'm very sorry to hear that. Sometimes when our physical bodies are compromised, our spirits will also reflect that.
Indeed.
I will leave you to your rest, but please reach out if you need support. Feel better.
Thanks. I am curious if you're just doing yoni massages or if you're doing sacred spot work.
All right, I'm sorry. This is where things get kind of gross. But listen, if you have to hear it, we had to deal with it. Justin called me when he was driving home from being out of town for Labor Day weekend and asked me what it was. He was laughing. He was like, I know we have to say we do sacred spot work, but what is it so I don't sound stupid? And I didn't want that in my Google search history. So I ended up doing it. I took one for the team. And we'll just put it this way. You can Google it yourself if you want a more in-depth description. But while yoni massage is erotic massage that would be like external, sacred spot would be more internal. We'll leave it at that. And it's just crazy how quickly Megan got into it. Clearly, she was excited to talk to this provider again.
Of course, the two often go hand in hand. However, I do not engage in sacred spot work until we've had 2 to 3 sessions.
I was thinking about that after I asked Hall. Can I ask why you tend to wait?
Because the power of this work is centered in using the power of our yes and our no. This is fundamentally consent-based work. Oftentimes, I find clients get into the routine of saying yes as the session begins. I don't want them to consent to the most sacred practices until they've had time to process our first few sessions together. Is that not the practice other providers you have worked with have followed? Also, due to the nature of the trauma that is often released, there needs to be a stronger foundational relationship between practitioner and client.
I've done sacred spot in my first session with a provider, but it was very much done at a slow, talking me through, making sure I was present in the room process. Our in-person sessions would generally begin with a grounding presence exercise. Megan appreciated the mirroring movements exercise. Then we would discuss Megan's intentions, concerns, and boundaries for the session. A couple sessions, Megan expressed a need for loving touch, and I would allow her to sit in between my legs and be held. When Megan was ready for body work, she would say so. Megan would generally lead the sessions. Body work would begin massaging the back body. When Megan was ready, she would say for the front body to be massaged. And then she would say when she was ready for breasts and genitals to be touched. All touch moved very slowly with oil. If she desired internal massage, then I would put on gloves and move very slowly, talking her through the process. Internal massage would seek to find areas of pain or pleasure and hold presence there. The session would conclude with laying a blanket over Megan's entire body and holding space while she integrates from the experience. We would close by talking for a brief time. This is how Harry and I worked for 4 sessions. Our sessions were 4 hours, but don't let the time scare you. There were lots of talking, communicating, eye gazing. It's not as labor intensive as one might think.
Just so we're clear, are you looking for me to replicate the experience you had with Harry, or are you looking for a new experience?
I think maybe similar, but it doesn't have to be identical.
Put yourself in Justin's shoes receiving these messages. He has no idea what he's talking about besides one Google search that I did for him and one phone call he listened into. And she's sending him weird texts where she's in the third person. He's driving down a highway. The Indiana roads have a lot of potholes in them, so he's looking out for those. He's got dogs in the car, and she's just inundating him. One minute she's got a stomach bug, and the next she's like giving him provider notes from one of her former yoni practitioners. This, again, it's gross, but it's kind of funny, like this all happening so fast. Again, we were worried that Megan was going to be rude and testy when he finally reached out, and immediately she's all in again. It was insane.
I'm glad your previous experience has been positive and you want to build on that. I'm going to sit with this and think of how I can best meet your needs. I appreciate you walking me through the process you feel most comfortable with. I'm going to seek the guidance and counsel of my mentor on our call Wednesday night. Let's tentatively schedule a call for Thursday and work out a plan.
I'm curious how you normally do a session.
Every session is different. It varies based on the client's needs. I've never done sacred spot work the first session. I always have one informal face-to-face contact with a potential client to go over formalities and establish a physical connection, then a second follow-up at my office to outline exact treatment goals. The third session is usually the initial body work, which can include yoni, There's a lot of variation depending on individual needs within that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I think maybe the disconnect is what we are defining as a session. The reason why I've done in-depth body work on the first session is because we've flown out providers from other states, so what you're describing as the informal face-to-face was done over Zoom, as well as the making a plan was done over Zoom. I very much don't want to rush anything. I've never had a provider live in the same state or region for that matter.
I see, since you are close, I definitely would want face-to-face meetings beforehand. I think Zoom and FaceTime have their place, but as this is body work, I want there to be a physical presence because I think our spirits are more profoundly connected when we are in the same physical space. Also, your message said, we've flown providers out. Who is we referring to? Do you typically like to do this work with someone else present?
No, I do not do this work with someone else present. I explain more in a sec. I apologize for the confusion. Yes, absolutely. You are in the state, let's do face-to-face everything. It is much different though when I've had to juggle providers flying out here from literally all across the US to do this work. When I say we, I'm speaking of my support network that I have here that are not professionals like my boyfriend, soon-to-be husband Jake. I have 3 adopted dads because my real dad has passed away. They're not technically adoptive dads, but stand-in dads, if you will. One is a former boss of mine that I lived with and has supported me through my journey. We have what we call hashtag Team Meg. I don't want to step on your toes any more than I might have already, but we have found it absolutely crucial to have support outside of the provider. If I only had you, I'd absolutely exhaust you. Ha ha. And sometimes it's really hard for loved ones to hold space for this kind of work, so it doesn't always work as well as I wish it did. But at the end of the day, hashtag Team Meg is the people that I have in my corner that have my back, regardless of whatever, and have had my back through a lot of thick and thin.
She includes a graphic after this, which reads, "Oftentimes we hear that it takes a village to raise a child, but adults need villages too. Adults deserve to feel safe in community with like-minded people that they can rely on and who feel good in their nervous systems." So just think about this, right? We're worried that she's going to be mean and she's just immediately going into this. Again, I cannot emphasize enough. And Justin repeatedly said that he was driving. By the way, if you're confused why that voice doesn't sound like Justin's, I did it in an alternate voice so that you don't get confused between Justin and the character that Megan thought she was trying to talk to. But again, just kind of wild how quickly she amped up. Once we realized Megan was kind of all in, our strategy was to get Megan comfortable enough to give this new provider an address that we could meet up with her at, and then we could give that address to police in order to turn her in for the warrant that she was running from. But you have to remember, at this point, to Megan's knowledge, the person she's communicating with has no idea about any of her outstanding warrants or legal troubles. Megan never really posted about her legal problems on Instagram. She mainly posted on Facebook and Twitter. And the only places that this so-called provider had communicated with her on was Instagram and Telegram. So we're kind of inching around like, hey, let's meet up in person, but keeping it professional.
Wow, that is such a beautiful sentiment. And so true. It's imperative that clients have reliable support networks outside of the practitioner. That's part of the work we do in the consultation appointments, is establish who is in your support network, what can we rely on them for, what are their limits. Practitioners also have to have support to carry this kind of work. That's why I regularly check in with my mentor. Do I have consent to ask him general questions about treating experienced clients, such as yourself? Most of the prospective clients I'm in contact with are completely new to this work.
I want to say yes, but I feel some push back in myself because what if mentor says no?
Is your concern that my mentor will tell me that I should not provide services to you because you're so experienced in this work?
Probably. This is totally not how I saw 2023 going for me, LOL.
So this, 2023 isn't going the way I thought it would. This is the first slight indicator that she's having any sort of problems. We could pick up on it because obviously we knew better, but this is the first time Megan ever indicated some sort of struggle. Any sort of struggle, by the way. She never talked about any healing work that she needed to do. She never mentioned what she was healing from. I just think that's interesting. I also think it's interesting, again, she's just so hard and heavy and fast. She's already considering this guy that she doesn't know what he looks like to be a part of her support network, along with people she considers her dad. And also, by the way, and you know this by now, Megan doesn't have a boyfriend or a fiance, almost husband named Jake. That's been widely debunked, but she's already going back into that story because obviously this provider doesn't know better.
I don't think it's a matter of yes or no. I would just be seeking guidance on how to integrate my typical style and training with the structure you're used to best meet your needs. The universe always has plans greater for us than what we envision for ourselves.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how this will work myself. It's not a matter of if, it's just figuring out how. I'm definitely keeping my mentor, Coach Leo.
These are the kinds of things that are discussed in the consultations that I do. Each spirit is unique. We all carry individual traumas. There's no one correct formula to do this work. I am here as a local resource to help you on your sacred healing journey.
I really appreciate that.
Let's allow this conversation to sit with our spirits overnight and reconnect tomorrow and try to make space in our schedules this week for a physical meeting.
At this point in the entire scheme, the character Justin created was kind of running the show. When Megan was trying to say things like, when Megan's saying things like, oh, I don't know if your mentor is going to let you work with me, we took that as a sign that she wanted this more than the provider was showing that he wanted it, which we thought was a good thing. We thought that that was a dynamic that a normal patient and provider would have. And again, we were trying to keep things cordial, just getting things to an in-person meeting and trying to have that happen quickly because Justin did not want to be texting her forever. It was too hard on him. And like I said, in this beginning, he was in control. So he would say, I'm going to bed at night, and that would be the last text. So this all felt pretty manageable for myself, for Justin, and for the others that we had clued in. By this point, there was a group chat between myself, Justin, Alex, Kyle, and Mike. Kyle and Mike did not want to be included in the podcast, but they were a big help. Kyle has a law degree. He would kind of go over the legality of some of the stuff. You'll hear about that later. And Mike had talked to Megan for a long time. I believe when Megan says that she has 3 father figures, one being a former boss, she's referring to Mike, although I don't think Megan ever lived with Mike, so that would have been a lie. But we all felt like we were in a good place with this. This was manageable. We could do this for a few days. And now when I listen back to this, I get a little uncomfortable because, we were doing something wrong. We were impersonating a character and stuff. But I think because Megan went so hard and heavy so fast, throughout this time, none of us were second guessing what we were doing. None of us were saying like, oh, is this wrong? Is this rude to do? Not at this point. It was just, we were all in. And I also think it's important to point out when it comes to discussing sexual things, when it comes to discussing legal things, Justin was never the one that prompted Megan and asked her those things. He talked in very vague generalities, and she is the one who repeatedly brought things up. So if anybody's thinking that this is exploitative, obviously to a degree it is because we were impersonating a character. But also, this was never to be used to dig up uncomfortable information from Megan. She really didn't disclose that much, and she was always the one that brought things up first. So, like I said, Justin kind of felt like he was in control. It was manageable. He texted her the next morning.
Good morning. Setting my intentions for the day. Today, it is my intention to reach out to you this evening and align our schedules for the week for our consultation meetings. Have a great day.
Megan didn't respond for 12 hours. We were starting to get worried that she was onto us, but she eventually replied.
Hey there. I'm sorry it took me all day to circle back. I'm dealing with a situation that I don't want to say much about, but it is something that would prevent me from meeting in person this week. Or can we maybe do a Zoom and we can still do an informal meeting maybe next week? I would like to do something to hold the ground we are building here.
I am definitely open to some sort of phone call. I am sorry to hear you are undergoing so much stress. How is your physical health today?
Not well.
I am very sorry to hear that, Megan. It sounds like your body and spirit need a break.
They do indeed.
I'm sensing There's a lot of hurt going on your end. I just want you to know I can hold space for you as a support. This is incredibly sensitive, but are you physically safe? I only ask because a lot of people seeking this work live in environments where they are not safe.
Yes, I'm absolutely fine physically. Thank you for asking. I'm living in an Airbnb at the moment, to be honest, but yes, I'm safe.
I am relieved to hear you physically safe, although it sounds like your spirit is very vulnerable at the moment. Are physically safe. Sorry, I just noticed my typo.
You have no idea how incredibly vulnerable my spirit is.
So you see, she's kind of breadcrumbing this character. She clearly wants him to ask what's wrong, and Justin was worried about how far to push her. Obviously, again, she has not told this provider anything about her current troubles, and we did know about them because it was us, not a provider. So we needed to be careful and not come on too strong or come on like we were asking. And luckily, Justin's really good at dealing with crazy women, so he was able to get it out of her.
Wow. Just from what little you've shared with me, your physical body is compromised, you don't have permanent housing, and we're going through the metaphysical change of seasons. That alone would put the spirit through incredible amounts of stress.
I do have permanent housing. I just can't be there right now.
Is there someone in your life who is a threat to your safety?
No, but at this point I feel like if I say much more, you're going to run for the door because that's the easy thing to do, and I know it. I've been a professional myself, not in this line of work, of course, but I've done political consulting and been a high school teacher.
As of right now, I'm only a friend. I'm not sure who's run for the doors on you, but that's not what I do here. Or I can feel pain in your messages. It hurts my spirit to feel others in pain.
Can what I say please have no bearing on if you decide to be my provider? It does not put you in harm's way.
Megan, it's not your responsibility to carry my boundaries. If anything you do or say is something I can't handle, I will let you know. But this is the exact kind of vulnerability that builds trust for a successful therapeutic relationship in this work.
All right. I'm trusting you. I'm going through an extreme legal situation right now. A few years ago, 2021, my dad was passing away and I tried to sublease a house that I was renting. I did not own said house, but needed a way to cover things because I wasn't living there and wasn't able to work because of my dad. I tried to sublease it, and when I realized it was not going to work, I refunded the tenants we are discussing here. Fast forward 2 years, Hamilton County decides to press charges, 7 felonies, 2 misdemeanors. A few weeks ago, I had a bail revocation hearing, and I was scared because my mom had a heart attack that week, that I attempted to commit suicide. I've tried like 9 times now since I was first arrested in April. I made a bad choice, and now we are fighting a warrant in Hamilton County. Everyone has been paid back except one person. This is all public knowledge. The amount is smaller than $1,000, and I was going to pay her back, but she got the police involved for no reason. Everyone else was paid back. We are talking under $3,000 total. I was under the impression that I had made amends as much as I could. When a police report was filed, I knew from my experience that I couldn't have any more involvement. Fast forward to April of 2023, an arrest warrant is issued. I immediately took care of bail bond, turned myself in, and took care of that. It was a disaster, but I knew it was the right thing to do. The judge said a few weeks ago if I was showing I was getting mental health help, he would revoke the failure to appear today. He denied that. I've not heard from my attorney. It's been an extremely messy situation, and it weighs on me.
Megan, that is a lot of stress for anyone to be carrying. I'm happy to be able to help you carry that. I am sensing some shame in these messages. Shame is a bully. Grace is a shield. Everyone deserves some grace. There is no shame in this line of work.
I've been attacked by a vicious mob on social media.
Along with this message, she sent a ton of screenshots from the online community, or what she would call the mob that was after her, including the Twitter accounts, the Facebook group, everything that you have heard of up to this point. And remember how I've talked in these previous episodes how if you were looking to corroborate Megan's story that she was the victim of this online mob, there was evidence of that. And when she attached all of those screenshots, obviously devoid of context, and when she had lied about the story, it was understandable why this provider might take her at her word. So Justin's character could go along with what Megan was saying, that this was all just one big misunderstanding.
I got this just tonight. They harass, stalk, and have driven so many people out of my life. I've been quite public about my work as a client in sacred sexuality, writing in the NYT, and writing my book, Don't Fucking Waste This Session. I've been quite public about my work as a client in sacred sexuality, writing in the NYT, and writing my book, Don't Fucking Waste This Session.
Nobody gets here because it's been an easy road. Everyone brings heavy trauma to this work. Many of my clients have experienced extreme abuse and bullying. You are an individual spirit worthy of love and respect and healing. That sort of vitriolic bullying is so destructive. Now I understand why Instagram was not a safe space for you. Megan, I'm going to sleep a little early tonight because I'm getting up earlier than usual to speak to a colleague of mine in Edinburgh to collaborate on some research we've been doing. I sincerely wish you a peaceful night, and the rest I can tell you so badly need. We will be in touch tomorrow. Thank you for sharing some of that burden with me tonight. This helps me feel more connected to you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
So that sounds like Justin signing off to go to bed, right? Well, then he was bombarded with messages between 2 and 4 in the morning from Megan. And what's weird is she starts the message as if he was expecting her to text her that much overnight, but he wasn't.
I've been distracted, which is why I haven't messaged back. This has been extremely difficult, to say the least. I've been trying to navigate this through the night with my mom, whom I'm not with. But no, the reason I can't be at my mom's, which is where I'm currently living, because we sold our townhome in Fishers with the plans to move to the East Coast until the judge denied my plan back in July, is because of the warrant. And it's not I'm avoiding jail or evading police, but because jail isn't the best place for me, and my legal team is trying to navigate this.
Megan attached screenshots of Jim Baker's YouTube channel. Jim is a community member that I believe was scammed by Megan, and he made kind of funny YouTube videos about the ongoing situation throughout the summer to entertain the online community. I'll link that channel in the description in case you want to check it out.
There's a YouTube channel with Al videos about me, kind of funny, but shows you how far they're willing to go at this point. Even in this, Harry participated in the mob, and it was really sad.
And then this is almost too good, you couldn't write this. She attached a screenshot of Justin's tweet talking about a Twitter space that we were going to run that we thought Haribo was going to speak on. Long story short, when Justin and I were running the Twitter spaces, somebody in the group had gotten in contact with Haribo, and we thought that Haribo wanted to talk to us and kind of release a statement to the group. That ended up not happening, but it's just so meta that she sent this character that was actually Justin a screenshot of Justin's tweet.
Please do not engage in this social media mob, which I don't think you would, but trust me, you want to stay as far away as possible. They found out from a friend, now turned enemy, about my work with Leo, and they send me his OnlyFans content to trigger me, which has actually gotten me over some fears. Ha ha ha. It's been exposure therapy, just kind of funny at their financial expense of subscribing to their channel, LOL. I was not expecting to see my coach naked, but okay. Here we are, and that container is allowing me to explore more and be curious about more, and really let the shame of things go in that sense. Leo has been really dedicated and the calming presence in my life. My husband-to-be, we are engaged, is actually at an ISTA training right now in Seattle, so Leo is trying to support me as much as he can during this week. The mob haters will literally do whatever they can do to make my life miserable, including just most recently calling the police department in hometown saying that I was suicidal. And they went to my mom's home, even though I've not been there in nearly 6 weeks. It's just really annoying stuff at this point. Thankfully, Leo and I have a strong bond that the haters that have harassed him, he is able to get past it and not engage. I definitely am not telling a soul, not even Leo, that we are working together yet. I will definitely be mindful. Not because I'm scared of saying we are, but because I have an angry mob that follows not literally, but will harass people that are supporting me in life. That's why I'm very quiet about my work with Leo. Though it sucks right now, because I am usually a lot more vocal about my sexuality work. That's just my preference and what I feel called to do with my work as a client in this. Work. The reason I want to keep Leo is because him and I connected before Harry and I officially ended. Harry was going to be spending the summer abroad, and so I was going to do work with Leo, and then it ended up being on pause a few weeks, and then Harry and I had an official rupture that neither of us wanted to repair. So when we officially ended, Leo stepped right in the same day to make sure I didn't lose too much ground. Leo's role has changed a lot more to crisis manager through this, and I'm not sure the reality of him and I working in person because the distance and the schedule is making it difficult.
And again, all of those were sent at 4 in the morning, completely unprompted. Justin thought he was just going to bed for the night. So he woke up to those and he responded around 8 or 9 in the morning.
Megan, this all sounds very stressful, and I'm sorry you are dealing with all of this bullying. I'm struggling how to respond to so much information at once adequately.
Obviously, that's a lot to be bombarded with, even if you know the situation. But again, to Megan's knowledge, this provider had no idea what was going on. And along with that message, Justin attached a graphic of the Man in the Arena quote by Theodore Roosevelt, which I also think is really funny that a Yoni provider would send a Theodore Roosevelt quote.
It sounds to me like you really got vulnerable and put yourself out there about this sacred work, and people who do not understand it attacked you for daring to share your experience and have an impact. Human beings react the strongest against the things that are unknown. People discussing this work in public is often a new thing for people to encounter. New things are often scary, but you can't let others' fear of the unknown and criticism of someone daring greatly keep you out of the arena. This journey is your sacred journey, not anyone else's.
But Megan didn't respond to that text. Instead, she kind of ignored it and just texted him a few hours later.
Hey, I have super great news, and I'm sorry that I overwhelmed you.
I'm excited to hear your news. Also, I want to clarify, I do not feel overwhelmed or flooded. I just wanted to make sure I adequately addressed all of the information.
I have a current warrant in Hamilton County, which is why it is not safe to meet with you or anyone or exit the Airbnb right now. The judge has agreed to let me walk into court next week and deal with it in court instead of surrendering to the jail. Next Thursday at 11. The judge is expected to let me go after I eat some humble pie and deeply apologize for my failure to appear.
That is exciting news. Hopefully you can put your legal issues behind you and get back to focusing on your wellness soon.
Gosh, me too.
I will say I am not a lawyer. When it comes to my role here, it's to be a support in all aspects of life, but sometimes my best support is to advise you see someone else's expertise. This is one such case. When it comes to arrest warrants and appearing in court, my advice is just follow your lawyer's advice. If there's stress involved in that, we can work through that together.
Correct. On hashtag Team Meg, we have what we call lanes. There's mental health lane for the mental health side. There's Dr. Lane that keeps me physically alive. There's the more sacred healing that is more your lane. And Leo shares that lane with you. And there's mom lane and boyfriend lane. Everyone stays in their lane and we all thrive.
I remember after she sent him this, Justin called me and said that this was the most narcissistic message he had ever received from someone. And it's kind of true. She's talking about this support network she supposedly has, but nowhere in there is she talking at all about a mutual relationship. It's just a bunch of different people that serve her in different capacities. Kind of strange.
Love this.
Yes, I never expect you to be my attorney or my mom, because those roles are fulfilled already. Everyone has to stay in their lane for hashtag Team Meg to succeed. Although I do apologize that the stress bleeds over from other lanes.
Some of the preliminary work I have you do is I have a workbook I'll give you that has you outline what your support system looks like, and it has you describe what everyone's limits are and what boundaries they have that need or respecting.
Oh, that's amazing.
Or don't apologize. My boundaries aren't your responsibility.
Can I ask what is the workbook is called? This sounds like excellent work. I am extremely sensitive to being abandoned. I just want to let you know. I found it a bit helpful to be able to be proactive that in the beginning of these relationships to talk about when we do end, because I acknowledge that this is not a marriage where we will likely be together long term.
It's something my mentor has compiled and he lets me use as well. It doesn't really have a name. It's just a compilation of worksheets he's used over the years. I'll give you a copy. That's why I structure my consultations the way I do. The first, like I said, is an informal get-to-know-you meeting. I bring the workbook and reading materials I use there first. Then you'll come to my office and we'll go through and process all of it. Usually take about 2 to 3 hours. That's where we decide how often we want to meet and map out what a session will look like. That's when we decide what fair compensation for my time will be. We can discuss how long you'd like to work together or an exit strategy then. Then the third time is the actual first session with bodywork involved.
Okay, I love this though. If I can't meet at your office, but if I had access to reserve a private office at a co-working space, would you come up to the Indy area next week?
Yes, we can amend the general structure to accommodate your needs.
Great, I'm free Thursday after 12 noon.
The only thing is that it needs to be in-person meetings. I feel like this work is so sacred, there's definitely something missing when there's not a physical presence and it's over Zoom.
Yes, I agree.
Let me get back to you on a time.
I'm purposing next Thursday afternoon or any time on Friday next week. I can likely reserve a co-working space. It would be a private office, but with other offices around. But there is a place called Cohatch that I have a membership at already.
I think Thursday evening will work, but I need to iron out details.
I cannot do Thursday evening. I have another court date in my hometown. I have literally between noon and 5 p.m. open Thursday. Or I can do any time on Friday.
Friday evening would work better then, because I have to do research work and TA work during the day, and it's an hour drive up there. I could get away a little early, but not to give us enough time. Plus, if you have court, I want you to put that behind you so you can be fully present for our meeting.
That's fine. I have 2 court dates on Thursday.
Definitely let's do Friday then.
Great.
I want you present.
I will be Friday.
That's way too much stress for one day to have court on both ends of our meeting for now. It seems you were up all night. Rest your body and spirit. We will reconnect soon.
But Megan couldn't go too long without talking to this character. So 3 hours later, she messaged him this. And this is where Justin started to get a little annoyed with the constant texting.
Hello, want to hold more good news?
Of course.
So for months, I've been battling not being allowed to go to ISTA. I just got my clearance for the October training.
Oh, wonderful. Congratulations.
From ISTA, let me clarify.
That's very exciting.
So I'm thinking Leo is going with me to help hold me in the space, but we are talking about times he might need to rest and be with others to best hold me. I'm wondering if that week, if you could help hold me virtually.
I'd be happy to, as long as we've done our preliminary intake sessions by then.
So for reference, these texts are from September 6th. We began messaging Megan on Telegram on September 3rd. So Justin got this sick of Megan within 3 days, which is just crazy.
Great. I'm wishing we could meet sooner. Ugh.
Just to clarify, I understand we can't meet until your warrant is recalled, and that's to happen a week from tomorrow?
Sadly, I wouldn't know anywhere safe to meet in the meantime. Yeah, I'm not sure where that would be right now. I would like to keep in contact though, because I think it's extremely important to build on what we have and not leave me hanging.
I'm driving. Hang on. Let me get to where I can reply.
No, you're fine. I've been on the phone the entire day between lawyer, ISTA, Leo, doctor, and pharmacy. I'm going to be diving into a therapy session shortly.
Just got to my destination. I'm walking into a meeting, so I won't be available, but I had an idea I want you to sit with and let me know your thoughts. I usually have a hard rule against house calls because this work can bring out deep traumas, and I don't want trauma to be released in someone's personal space so that they no longer feel safe there. However, the initial meeting is usually pretty painless and informal, and me dropping off the materials. And you're not currently in your primary permanent home, so you won't be there for long. So I would maybe consider having the meeting where you currently are staying if you were to invite me. It's definitely not my first choice, but I'm open to a discussion about it.
And Megan just could not stop texting this so-called provider. So she would go a couple hours and then she would text something else. And for what it's worth, apparently this is uncommon in this field to text this much without getting a payment. So when Megan was texting Harry this much, or Leo, the other Yanni, this much, she was having to pay for it. And I think one of the reasons she was texting this provider so much is because we specifically told her we wouldn't accept payment. And the reason we did that is because we didn't want her to go scam somebody else to pay this person. But it got very draining on Justin, to say the least.
There's some risk to me, but I can consider this.
Sit with it. I'm not sure either. We're both busy. We can discuss later. Have a productive session with your therapist.
Thank you. I do want to ask, where do you normally do sessions? I've done the ones with Harry. We did them at my home in Fishers and never had an issue, and it wasn't awkward. I'm also very hospitable, so I'd like to think that played a role. But yeah, I've done them at my house. I did them at Airbnb in Philly. I've also done a session with my boyfriend at the provider's location. I've never done them in hotel rooms, so I'd be curious where you meet clients.
I've always done body work in hotel rooms. I feel a neutral third space is best because we can leave any prejudices about the space at the door. It's neither my space or yours. It's neutral ground. We are equals in that space. Processing sessions typically happen in my office.
I've been raped in hotel rooms and was trafficked in hotel rooms.
I'm very sorry to hear that. So I'm interpreting that to mean you do not feel safe doing body work in hotels?
Correct. Doing it in a hotel room feels like a one-night stand.
Okay, two things to say here. First of all, the switch from apparently being raped and trafficked in a hotel to, but it feels like a one-night stand is like very bizarre. Second of all, for what it's worth, it seems that this raped and trafficked in a hotel story was stolen from the Spice Girls. When Justin and I discussed it with Alex later that evening, she told us immediately, yeah, that's a Spice Girl story. So Megan was still up to her same antics years later, taking other people's stories as her own.
That's an interesting perspective on it. Most of my clients have placed a high value on the neutrality of the space. While that is the usual practice, your comfort and security is what's most important to me. We can find an alternative solution.
So I'm used to doing this work literally on the floor with like a cushion or a skinny mattress type thing, and the provider is usually on the floor. I'm curious if you can help me understand how you typically do this.
Typically use a yoga mat on the floor. I have my call with my mentor in Cali here soon, so I will likely not be very responsive the rest of the evening. Just reminding you of that so you don't feel neglected or abandoned.
You are amazing. I would not prefer a hotel, but we could rent an Airbnb and it would be neutral ground.
Airbnb sounds like a workable solution, unless you'd like to come down to Bloomington if that's an option.
Driving to Bloomington and or traveling isn't going to be likely for a while for me. Sorry, I realize you might be offline for the night and that's totally fine. I don't blame you. I'm probably going to go to bed early myself, but I was wondering, how do you do this work without a fear of a false accusation?
I was just headed to bed for the night, not entirely sure what you mean by your question.
We live in an era of #MeToo.
I see. I understand now the question now.
Sorry, complicated question.
I've never met anyone in this line of work who I thought would do that, so Elv never had a fear of that. I fundamentally believe we are all humans in need of love, support, and healing. In my experience, when I give that wholeheartedly to others, that's what I typically receive in return. Now I must sign off for the night. Get some rest.
Do you see what I mean when I say that Justin is so good at this? Like, he threw that out there, making it sound like he didn't really want to do it, but he would maybe be willing, knowing that Megan wouldn't want to do it. But like, that reverse psychology totally worked on her. Justin's deserves a lot of credit for how he did during all of this.
A YouTube channel, 8 Twitter pages, and counting. 1 giant Facebook group, 1 podcast about me, 1 YouTube channel about me, countless police reports made of suicidal behavior to terrorize my mother. Let me know when the harassment stops.
And then another hour later,
I'm working on my doctorate work for Liberty tonight. I have plenty of time on my hands right now if you want to come up this week to Indy. Also, do you have any references of past clients that would be comfortable vouching for you? I realize this work has a nuance to it, and so I understand if you don't, but I always ask. Also, I'm still getting over the stomach bug. I never thought peanut butter crackers wouldn't even settle with my stomach. Ugh.
So Justin woke up to all of that. So here's how he responded.
Good morning. Megan, this mob sounds very viscous. While it seems like a lot of people, it is likely just a few lost souls reacting out of fear and insecurity that they don't understand this work and someone being open about it. I'm very sorry you are dealing with that. This is why I personally stay off of social media as much as possible and try to limit my circle on there. I am definitely willing to meet this weekend if we're able to iron out logistics. I do not give our references due to confidentiality. Also, I wouldn't even be allowed to ask former clients because this is the first time I'm working under my own name and business. I've always worked for someone else, so those records belong to my former employer, not to me personally. I'm very sorry your physical health is still compromised. Sounds like you've hardly had time to rest in the past week with all of this stress going on.
Would you be open to signing a confidentiality agreement?
That's part in the materials I bring to the first meeting. I have a meeting with another prospective client in Chicago on Saturday. I could stop in Indy on my way back to Bloomington Saturday evening and meet at your Airbnb or a neutral location of your choosing.
That works.
Okay, what time and place is most comfortable for you?
I'm flexible on time as to the place. I can give you the address on Saturday.
Okay, I should be coming back through Indy around 7 p.m. How does that sound?
Fantastic.
Excited for our future together.
I would also like to highlight that it is not just this work that my mob is angry about. They should spend time attacking my criminal issues.
Who are these individuals? Are they people you know in real life or internet trolls?
So basically my legal situation can be summed up here. 2 years ago in December of 2021 was renting a house. I tried to sublease the house to cover my numbers. My dad was passing away past in 2022. As soon as I found out that me as the tenant couldn't rent out the house, I gave back the deposits to everyone. I know nothing about real estate, LOL. I was trying to run essentially an Airbnb, just not my house. The entire situation became jacked up, and even though people were paid back immediately, one of the prospective tenants ended up homeless, though technically not my fault. I have had rental contracts fall through, and I never have blamed them for when I could have been homeless. So then enter a vicious mob.
With this, Megan included a screenshot of her Google search result history. If you searched her name, what popped up? And it was her mugshot and all of the articles about her committing crimes.
I'm not afraid to share this. It's public. I used to carry deep shame, but I am learning that if someone wants to be in my life or is meant to be, then they will hear my side of the story, and even if they don't believe it, they should at least be able to say that I deserve my day in court. I have not been proven guilty, just arrested. I just want to say something. I actually feel for people that have been wrongfully accused. This whole situation with me gives me such deep empathy. Such deep empathy. It's life-changing. So yes, it started with real-life people, and now it's turned into literally a downright angry mob of trolls, mostly. I do have some people like the former pastors on a podcast that did an interview about me from when I was 10 years old that claimed I made up false allegations about them, etc. Basically, everyone that has a past in my life wants 5 minutes of fame. In the document the police used called a probable cause to arrest me, it says I paid everyone back, but the state still claims it's theft because I took the money. But I gave it back, but they don't care so much that I gave it back clearly. And also in the probable cause, that is, again, public record, but no one actually wants the facts. It says during a 2-year investigation, the police never interviewed me for my side of the story, and that fact alone should be disturbing. 2-year investigation, not one interview with me? It sounds to me like a mix-up that has been taken out of context to create a narrative that's not accurate, and internet trolls are running with the false narrative. Correct. That must be a lot to carry. It's been blown way out of proportion, and we are talking 3 tenants.
I'm sorry that burden has become so heavy for you to carry.
Less than $3,000 altogether. It's all been refunded. I never intended to defraud anyone. I just was running what I thought could be an Airbnb, LOL.
Honestly, if I were being cyberbullied, I'd just go dark on social media for a month and they'll probably move on. Just don't give it oxygen.
Law and Order used to be my favorite show. Until I started living it. I'm so shocked that I was legitimately in the hospital on a court date from a suicide attempt, and the judge still issued a failure to appear, which is what I'm currently dealing with. It is so irritating.
This is actually all good insight for what we can work on. I think what's next for you is working on how we channel our energy or what we put life into. We're not going to our life into these bullies. We need to go deeper and do manifestation work, I think.
I love this. Big things happening on #TeamMeg. Aww. Also wanted to say that aside from all the stress I have in life, that is not normal BTW. I do hold and have space for sister survivors. I was abused by someone that is well known in political circles in Indy. Through a legal investigation, I became connected to several other women he also abused. I personally took a financial settlement and decided not to go through a legal process a few years back. Anyway, yes, there are big things ahead, and I love being able to hold space for sister survivors. I've been able to help many of my sister survivors start their sacred healing journeys, and it's been amazing.
And she still wasn't done. 6 hours later, she sent this.
Hey there. I'm talking with the legal team. I would feel much better if you and I could sign the confidentiality agreement ahead of time.
Hey, Megan. I definitely want to make your security and comfort my number one priority. I'm happy to do that for you.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to send one over, or you can send me yours. Or send me whatever you need me to do. Mine wouldn't be legally binding because it's only valid if funds are exchanged. Since we're not there yet, it would be void. truerenewal@gmail.com. Oh, okay. I send one over shortly. Is your legal name the name in this chat? Xavier?
My name is Xavier, yes. I saw in one of those tweets you sent me that your previous practitioner was cooperating somehow with the internet trolls. Is that the reason you're so concerned? Can you tell me a little bit more about what happened with that?
And then Megan sent a voice note, which I'll play right now. This is the only time you're hearing her real voice in this episode. Remember, every other time you're hearing a voice other than mine in this episode, it's AI.
Hey, so I thought I would just send you a voice memo to be much easier. And you can hear my voice. So yeah, Harry did participate, and that was the start of the drama. So when I was arrested the first time in April, Harry honestly did not know. She honestly got caught in a lot of drama, and part of it was he did not know what was happening. And it was very fresh. I had a session with him the day after I got out, the first time around. And I was still in shock and in horror, and I just needed a place that was normal and not someone else that was going to judge me, because I was losing everyone at this point. I was losing my political clients, people that we had known for years were leaving us. And I mean us as in my and Jake and I. And so Harry got a call. So he was in Indiana, and then he got a call that night, I guess, because they had found him through my Time articles. And anyway, long story short, Harry talked to them and broke confidentiality right after a session and was describing my private body parts to them even. And it was quite disgusting. Not that I go into more detail, but you can use some imagination there. It was insanely hurtful. And the call without Harry's consent was recorded. I think Harry stepped into something that he didn't know and he was stepping into either. But I think Harry just got scared because all of a sudden he's like, oh shit, my client's facing charges and she didn't tell me. So I think in a little bit he was scared. But I will send another voice memo in just a second. I'm going to order some dinner. But yeah, so it's been quite the whirlwind. But yeah, so all right, hang on just a second.
And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Nothing in that was true. She did not ever have political clients. When she's saying we, referring to herself and Jake, there was never a fiance or boyfriend named Jake. This was all publicly disputed. This was all publicly dispelled. But Megan meets this so-called Yoni practitioner who knows nothing other than what she has told him, and she chose to tell the same lies that had been debunked. And again, this is why people don't think that Megan will ever change, because she launches back into the same old story every time she meets somebody new. When she gets out of jail, what if she meets someone new and goes back into the same thing of, well, I've been in the New York Times. Well, I'm a political consultant. It isn't true. She has not shown that she will change.
That is heinous that he participated in that. I am taking some personal time this evening, but send what you want me to hear and I catch up later tonight.
But again, Megan can't go a couple hours without bombarding this practitioner. And this was maybe her worst time yet.
That's totally fine. Yes, I was especially tender after having a session. And sorry if too much information, but this session in particular was actually really emotionally hard because we spent probably 2 hours with Sacred Spot and it was so emotional for me. And then to hear my body parts described like I'm not even a human that deserves dignity literally after I dropped him off at the airport after that session was disgusting. And just grab your popcorn. There's more to the story that gets worse. So I got up Friday night, a group of us went out to eat, even the restaurant we lived down the street from at the time. The place I would go 4 times a week to eat their chicken wings refused us and said they no longer wanted my money just simply because I was arrested. Not convicted, just arrested. And then Saturday, I spent the entire day preparing for my session with Harry on Sunday. I have my own pre-session rituals. And at this point, I'm trying to operate as if life is normal, except I'm out and about in Hamilton County and everyone is recognizing me and I'm like, oh, Sunday I have my session with Harry. Up until about 9 p.m. nothing was weird off. Harry lands at 9:30 in Philly and I texted him and said, hey, I have some online bullies that may try to contact you. Please don't engage. And at this point, I'm trying to operate as if life is normal, except I'm out and about in Hamilton County and everyone is recognizing me and I'm like, oh, Sunday I have my session with Harry. Up until about 9 p.m. nothing was weird off. Harry lands at 9:30 in Philly and I texted him and said, hey, I have some online bullies that may try to contact you. Please don't engage. He texted me back and said, oh, I'm on the phone with one of them now. I was in a gas station parking lot and I remember just the feeling of crisis emerging on my face. It was one of those moments I will never forget where I was or what I was doing. And then Harry went to bed, which rightfully so. And then for the next 12 hours, I watched this play out on Twitter. And I was just crushed. Oh, and on Sunday night, my boyfriend Jake gets word from his school where he has taught 2nd grade for 6 years. He's on administrative paid leave for even being associated with me, even though you won't find on social media. A trace of him and I. So tons of stress that Sunday night. Or Monday morning, I'm going back to real life, right? And I'm heading on my way to teach high school, which was my job after being in jail and plastered all over the news the last week. Jake calls around 8 a.m. and tells me the school board met and decided to fire him, and we were gutted. Thankfully, somehow that situation got figured out, and he got a job actually closer to where we lived in Hamilton County. He was traveling almost 2 hours one way each day. I promise the story is going to pick up and climax with Harry pretty soon. So then that Monday, I see the tweet that the vicious mob are doing a Twitter live about me again. This is the second one. The first one was when I turned myself in. And as part of this Twitter live, they're going to air what Harry said about me. And I was at a speaking engagement to finish out Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I was backstage, and somehow by some miracle, Jake did the speaking engagement for me. I grabbed the car keys and said, sorry, you're going to have to Uber home. I'm leaving now. I walked out in absolute tears and yelling at Harry. Harry acted like I should be totally okay with this, LOL. And then I have a friend on the phone that was also part of Team Meg at the time, Zoe. And Zoe then hears from Harry, well, if you pay me more money, I will ask them to delete the recording and not play it. Zoe, with no law background, says, excuse me? This is extortion. This whole thing will make A for a great book. So at this point, there are a lot of crises. I'm also dealing with the fact that my pastor, who knew nothing about this, is on the news regularly this past weekend and Monday discussing my legal case, which he had no knowledge of. I tell Harry, I said, this is making me suicidal. Can we please tell the vicious mob not to play the phone call on Twitter live? Somehow, by the grace of God, Harry got this taken care of. I then am suicidal at this point with everything happening. And Harry says, yeah, go ahead and take a bottle of Zoloft, see if I care. So I call his longtime girlfriend at this point. They hadn't gotten married yet. Her name was Lavina. And I had a somewhat semi-relationship with Lavina, as in not official, but she did the same work as Harry. I called Lavina and was like, you need to get a hold of your soon-to-be fucking husband and this mess under control. She, of course, as a good wifey took his side and said he didn't do anything wrong. I then took a bottle of Zoloft, and Jake found me with the WhatsApp chat opened with Lavina. Oh, the entire thing was so bad. But obviously, I lived, and then I was trapped into a legal agreement and had to continue to work with Harry. Okay, sorry for all the messages, but yeah, that's part 1 of this long saga with Harry. I sent the non-disclosure over.
All of these texts came from 6 to 8 p.m., and Justin was at dinner with a friend. When he left dinner, he called me and said that his phone was buzzing the entire time he was at dinner. He couldn't focus. He was so frustrated, he was like, I can't even respond. And I think one of the reasons it's so frustrating is because nothing in that story was true. When she's talking about Haribo in that Twitter space, it is true that somebody from the community reached out to Haribo, but they were not giggling like schoolgirls. He never disclosed private, personal details about her. I listened to the call because it was recorded. He never said anything like that. Every single thing that she said in this whole charade was a lie. And Justin was just done. He just didn't want to do it anymore. When people say that she's overwhelming, they're not lying. He was overwhelmed. I was kind of mad at him because I was like, you have to respond. We're so close. But he couldn't do it. And that didn't stop her because he got another text from her at 4 a.m. unprompted.
Hi, super sorry to send another message, but I'm actually awake because that stomach bug still hasn't not gotten better. There's an outside chance I won't be able to meet if I'm still ill Saturday.
So after all of that, Megan's saying that she won't even be able to meet for another week. And that was just not acceptable to Justin. He was already so exhausted from continually dealing with her. He was not about to deal with this for another week. So Justin needed to lay down the law and tell her, look, we need to meet soon. Part of the way he did that is, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but he had come up with this whole story that he was very into the fall equinox and he was choosing to start his business at that time for some particular reason. I don't remember the details of the story, but they had discussed it on the phone call. And so that's one of the things he invokes when talking to her, saying, well, I need to start this by the fall equinox. I believe this conversation was being had on September 8th, and the fall equinox was the coming week. So it was kind of forcing her hand.
Hey, Megan, I apologize for the delayed response. I didn't get home until late last night. I did read all of this, but it was so close to bedtime, I wanted to have time to adequately process everything and address this whole story in the best way I could. I'm sorry that your previous practitioner and his partner disregarded your trust and well-being so badly. I'm really at a loss for words and honestly very confused why someone would do something like that. You are worthy of a practitioner who will hold you and keep your sacred trust. I am glad you are here and didn't succeed. It sounds like Jake has been a vital source of support during this time. Thank the universe for him. I'm sorry to hear you're physically highly still. Continue to rest, hoping we can meet tomorrow.
Thanks. Jake is at ISTA right now in Seattle. Leo and I are having a mini rupture. Ugh.
Sounds like you're going to need support to get through the weekend. We need to make a plan what's going on with Leo.
I think Leo is tired. I'm not going to argue with you about this tonight. I'm tired. I tried to listen and you got upset with me. Last message I got from him last night. I'm hoping he got some sleep last night. I know the last few weeks have been brutal.
Do you feel comfortable putting that comment in more context for my understanding?
I disclosed something that was trauma related because it kept coming up in flashbacks and it was a pretty close detail of my trauma. And his response was, I hear you, can we breathe? I felt very dismissed. This is what I shared. This piece feels ugly. So how I eventually got away from the abuse was I was overdosed intentionally with a sedative. I know the name but not the spelling, and I ended up going to a real hospital. And the reason why consent is really big to me, because I found out they did a rape kit while I was unconscious and I was of legal age. And this piece of my trauma feels like it's residue, like it's hanging out here. End of share.
I wonder if when he said, can he breathe, he was wanting you to do grounding breathing techniques to center yourself before you process the trauma. This is part of why virtual work has issues, because it's not always clear what someone intends to say over text. I'm very sorry that happened to you. Thank you for trusting me with this information. You deserve to feel safe in this world, and I'm sorry someone tried to take that from you. It sounds like a number of doctors and practitioners have added to the trauma instead of acting as the healers they should have been for you.
Yes, the last sentence, it sounds like that one. So true. It's been so challenging.
My mission is to be a healer, to be someone who contributes to the wellness, not just of my clients, but of everyone in my life. Everything we do impacts those around us. I try to only have positive impacts on those around us, even if it's just a brief interaction with a cashier or bus driver.
I asked Leo if he could acknowledge the trauma I shared, and I got. Like I said, I am paid to give the responses. Not you. Okay, then avoids Leo for the rest of the day, just going to cry now.
I think you need to rest. You've been sending me messages night and day, I've noticed. I can't imagine you've slept much. Your body is trying to fight this illness. Your spirit is also fighting to stay alive. Rest today, hoping our work can begin tomorrow.
Doing this.
We're proud of you. While sacred healing is very important work, we have to take care of our most basic needs first. Rest, food, shelter.
I've been sleeping the entire day.
I'm proud of you for putting yourself first and taking care of your needs.
Still doing this.
With this, she sent a photo of herself in bed.
Still doing this.
We all need days like that. How is your stomach bug?
I think better. I ate a really strong breakfast this AM.
I'm glad to hear it.
Did you have time to review the non-disclosure?
I actually did check that earlier. I have an email from an Elizabeth Stoner. Is that you?
Yeah. Yes. My middle name is Elizabeth.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to lie. I was a little off-put by that. At first, is there a reason you're using an alias with me?
I'm not. My email is just Elizabeth. My real name is Megan Elizabeth. No one in the sacred sexual healing realm, at least in terms of ISTA, go by their real name. Leo's real name is Kyle. Harry is Haribo.
Along with this, she sent screenshots of Haribo and Leo and their Instagram profiles. I want to be clear, when she kept bringing up this non-disclosure agreement, Justin and I went back and forth on this a lot, not knowing if we should sign something, forging a character. Like, we didn't know the legality of it. This is one of the reasons I'm really grateful we reached out to Alex, Kyle, and Mike, because Kyle's lawyer and could tell us that it was all kind of kosher and legal what we did. We never ended up signing anything, by the way.
Okay, I was just a little confused because that's the first time I'd heard the name Elizabeth. That's why I have all of my stuff under the business name of True Renewal and didn't tell you my name until we'd established a connection.
Gotcha. Yeah, my middle name is Elizabeth.
I will review it soon.
Yeah, sorry you are put off by that.
No need to apologize. I'm not sure if you've realized, but I'm not a tech wizard, haha. My only online presence has been to do the branding for the business. I try to stay offline and present in the moment as much as possible.
First do, not blame you. I want to be more like that. Leo and I's communication improved through the day finally.
I'm happy to hear that.
Things are really rough when you're limited to phone communication, haha.
Exactly why I prefer in-person work.
I'm on my way to an event I'm working this evening, letting you know so you know I'm still on your team but won't be with my phone much for a few hours. Love it when you and Leo get my anxiety about abandonment and find ways to help. Just to clarify, that's a message from Leo. I, Meg, am not going to an event.
Our communication is key.
Also, the entire reason for the NDA is I'm currently basically in hiding. I have not been allowed to have company or see almost anyone except for my mom one time in like 7 weeks now. I haven't even been able to go to the office of my attorneys. I just don't want my location disclosed, and I don't need the homeowner of the Airbnb getting hunted down by the mob.
That makes total sense. Again, your safety and security is essential to this work, so I'm happy to sign it.
Thank you very much.
I just need to make some space to do my due diligence and read and understand exactly what I'm signing.
No worries at all. I am the exactly same way. When I did my due diligence, I saw that you don't have a business registered with the state of Indiana.
So there she goes, switching on a dime again. We could not handle this. Justin called me freaking out, not knowing what to say. Thankfully, I file an LLC outside of my state for anonymity purposes, so I explained to him how that worked so he could respond. And this is how he did so.
Correct. I am not registered in Indiana. I am under incorporation registered in Wyoming for anonymity and tax purposes.
Why in Wyoming?
Wyoming has the best case law for businesses and a 0% rate. You can register an LLC through a registered agent and pay 0% income taxes and not have it tied to your legal name. Due to the extremely sensitive and confidential nature of this work, I wanted to be as discreet as possible. Many small businesses do the same.
I really hope you're legit. Leo and I's in-person work has been put on hold even though I've had a longer relationship with him and knew him before my legal stuff came into play because I'm so scared to give up my location.
I understand and validate your fear of being betrayed by another practitioner after your experience with Harry. However, I have another client meeting tomorrow and I'm not going to argue about the legality of my business. This is why I meet my clients and show them all the materials in person and let them decide if they want to work with me.
I understand. It's not the legality I'm concerned about at all.
What are you concerned about?
And like I said, we just could not handle going back and forth. Justin and I kept kind of fighting because he just wanted to give up, but we also didn't want to give up all of the hard work that we had done messaging her for days. So he came up with sending her a long message after she took a while to respond. This is how the message read.
Megan, the foundation of sacred sexual healing work is trust between client and practitioner. You reached out to me first and asked to be my first client. Over the holiday weekend, I ran some digital ads in the Chicagoland area and got several inquiries. I had been reserving a spot for you because you are the closest and were one of the first to reach out. The one hand, I completely validate your experience with other practitioners has been traumatizing, and you're a beautiful human who needs healing. On the other hand, my gut is telling me you're not ready to trust yet. I have other people in Chicago I can meet with tomorrow. If you still want to meet, we can, because I committed to you first, but I'm going to arrange other meetings if you can't. I have another meeting in Tennessee next weekend. Perhaps it's best if we reconnect after that. Maybe your legal situation will be resolved by then and you'll have more freedom. But I committed myself to getting this up and going by the equinox. I have others who are ready now to take the first steps. Let me know your thoughts on.
So we were like, holy shit, she gave it up that easily? Justin called me freaking out. This was around midnight on the night of September 8th, and I was about to go to bed, so I wasn't really checking my messages, but I was shocked when he sent me the screenshot. He called me repeatedly, and we were like, oh my god, what do we do? Do we call the police now? The reason we didn't is because we know that from time to time Megan listens to police scanner radio, or at least we've heard that. We knew that she was staying at an Airbnb in a certain area of Indianapolis, and we were worried that if she heard on the police scanner radio that people were after her, she would just hide. So Justin and I decided to send this address to the group chat of Alex, Kyle, and Mike, telling them that we had her address and we could get her. And we knew we had the window of up until 7 p.m. the next night. Kyle and Mike had a Young Republicans convention the next day, and Alex had something going on as well. We figured we would kind of regroup after the YR convention and somebody would call the police. We were also under the impression that Kyle and Mike had the number of an Indiana police officer who was dedicated to the Megan case. And we were thinking if we could just get that cell phone number, because we thought it was a cell phone number, that would curtail calling 911 and get her on the police scanner radio. We just really didn't want to spook her. But of course, Megan kept texting because of course she did. So she sent a barrage of texts overnight, which I'll play here.
I'm sorry for the weird pauses in messaging you. Please don't think I'm not interested. The stomach bug kind of wore me down, and I'm working on a project with the New York Times that is launching in the next few weeks, and it has to do with sacred sexuality and launching nonprofit for survivors to get this type of healing if they desire. And with the stomach bug, I've been literally falling asleep as I lay in bed. Haha. I wanted to say earlier that I told you part one of the Harry and Meghan saga. The rest of the saga is things did get better. But then he broke confidentiality again in June, so we quit working together. And we did revisit 3 weeks ago. But in our Zoom call, I could tell he was not going to accept any responsibility for what he had done. So I had zero interest in working with him again. And I think adding Harry back in was going to add drama.
This is another one of those weird times where she acted like he was expecting a response. Kind of strange. And she didn't stop here.
The newest artwork of my haters.
She included more screenshots, including a photo of her behind bars, which somebody in the group had made and posted on social media of her.
Thought you might like my level of self-care. Donuts in bed, and yeah, don't ask why after having a stomach bug that I got donuts, other than I've been craving them, haha.
Then the next morning she sent this other photo of herself in bed with an entire box of what looked like a dozen Jack's donuts. We took this as a good sign because if you remember, when Megan turned herself in the last time, she took a selfie outside of Jack's Donuts right near the jail. We were like, this must be a sign from God that we're actually going to get her today, because we didn't know if we would. Also, just kind of insane that she, also just kind of insane to like be laying in bed, eating an entire box of donuts and calling that self-care. That irony is not lost on me. But Justin kind of had to keep up appearances, acting like nothing was wrong. He was working all day.
Setting my intentions for the day, I'm currently on the way to Chicago for my meeting there. I will reach out when I'm on my way back down to Indy, and we can meet sometime around 7 p.m. What I would like from you is to practice some grounding and stay off of social media 1 to 2 hours in advance so you can clear your mind and prepare your spirit to be present with me. Talk soon.
I will do that.
Or try to drink a lot of water throughout the day to flush the body of harmful elements that do not serve you. Just left my meeting. It went amazing. I think I have my first client headed towards Indy now. Estimated time of arrival is 7:06 p.m.
Justin tried to keep texting her sparingly throughout the day while he was working so that she didn't get nervous, which she didn't seem to. However, we started to get nervous around 11 a.m. or noon when we hadn't heard from Mike and Kyle. Their meeting was running late. They ended up adding Alyssa to the group chat to help us call 911. Apparently, the number they had from the police officer in charge was just the officer's personal extension, so he wouldn't answer it on the weekend. And I was worried about calling 911 from Minnesota because I didn't think that it would get through to the right authorities. You'll remember Alyssa from earlier in the series. She ran the most successful plot to catch Megan along with Vero, but by no fault of their own. Really, it's like a freak coincidence that no one could have seen coming. Megan was released from the cop car after Alyssa and Vero went to catch Megan. So Alyssa was ripe for a redemption arc here too, even though, again, by no fault of her own did that plan work. It's actually insane that that one didn't work and this one did. I will never understand it. In the interim, either the night prior or that morning, Justin had looked up listing photos of the address Megan gave, and the photos of the house that Justin found online matched the photos that Megan had sent of her in bed throughout the week. So we were pretty sure we had the correct location. However, we were worried about how to catch her. If we called 911, Megan could be listening to the scanner. So we decided to call the non-emergency line, but we weren't sure how seriously they would take this. We also didn't know if we should call the non-emergency line for Hamilton County or Madison County. There were different warrants, and I think she was in a different county. And then there was, if the police went to the door, we were worried Megan just wouldn't answer her door. We knew she was staying at an Airbnb where the property owner lived at the same property. What if he didn't comply? Maybe we should have reached out to him. And I want to emphasize, I didn't know Alyssa. We had never interacted. But she was added to the group, and once we came up with a plan, she called me, and then we did a 3-way call with the Indiana non-emergency line. I believe we called 2 different counties. I was so impressed with everything Alyssa had. She was the only one who spoke, and she had so much information about this. She had Megan's case number. She had known about the property as well. Like, she knew there was a separate entrance that Megan could run out of if she was spooked. The operator took down all of the information, and Alyssa gave her phone number so the sheriff could call back if he needed more info. And to our surprise, he did call back within about 20 minutes. He told Alyssa they were headed to get her, and Alyssa gave more context and asked if he would be willing to call her back, to which the sheriff replied that he would. So we sat anxiously for about a half hour, and then Alyssa got the call. They got her. Alyssa had her redemption, and Megan was finally caught. And one more thing I haven't mentioned up to this point. Justin had also received a text within about 2 hours of this all going down from Tom. You remember Tom. Megan stole between $10,000 and $15,000 from him over the summer. Megan had contacted Tom that morning asking for more money. So just think about that. We were so ecstatic that we got her, and learning about the Tom piece of everything, again, we were just elated that she wouldn't be able to do that anymore. And we're so grateful that the sheriff called Alyssa back, because we were not sure if we would know if Megan got caught for hours, because it would take maybe over the weekend for the system to update. However, Megan reached out to this Yoni provider as well.
Hey, they picked me up. I believe you turned me in.
She also called Justin twice from jail. I guess she had his number the whole time through Telegram. I guess the number wasn't hidden, but she didn't have Justin's number saved, so she never knew. And even when she called Justin from the jail, thinking it was the Yoni provider, we don't think she knew it was Justin at that point. But we were elated. We announced it on social media. I announced it on Twitter. Mike announced it to the Facebook group. We decided to schedule a Twitter space for the coming days so we could tell everybody all of what happened because we knew that people would want to know. And we felt really good when we realized that people were no longer going to be worried about her continuing to scam. But I want to be clear, Justin and I particularly had mixed feelings about this. On one hand, we were so glad she couldn't continue reaching out to Tom for money, and we were excited that she wouldn't be scamming in general anymore. However, it made us feel uneasy when we heard that she had been assigned a bunk in jail and we saw her mugshot. Again, she went in so hard and fast once we got to the telegram. We knew what we were pushing for, and obviously we knew it was right to get her caught. She was running from the police on a warrant that she was never going to go in for. All of that stuff she said throughout these texts about, oh, my attorneys are just telling me not to go, none of that was true. She wasn't paying attorneys. She was assigned a public defender, and no lawyer would advise their client not to turn themselves in for 6 weeks and to run from the police like that. So Megan was no longer going to get away with the antics that she had gotten away with for 6 weeks. There would no longer be tweets begging for money day after day on social media. We were happy about all of that. But at the same time, there was a tinge of like, ugh, I feel bad about what we did. And quite frankly, those feelings just never kicked in while we were in the middle of the operation. And again, it was because we were just constantly bombarded with texts from Megan. We never thought twice about what we were doing. And if you think the story ends here, you would be wrong, because Megan's kept up with people since she's been in jail. She calls Justin weekly to figure out what was said on the podcast. She calls Alyssa from time to time. She calls Mike. She calls a lot of people. She, I believe, still calls Haribo. So in the next episode, we're not quite done yet, I'm going to go over some of the most egregious things she's done since being in jail, because she did not have a slice of humble pie and say, you know what, you got me. She kept the scams going on in jail. I'm so sorry that it took so long to get this episode out. I hope you like it. And for now, until next week, I'm Amanda. This is Don't Waste the Effing Podcast, the story of Megan Stoner.